Hello there, my name is Zuza, and I know this might be a bit of a face reveal to some people, because some people know me as the VTuber, but I thought it'd be better that if I was to talk about artist add-ons and stuff, it might be a bit more professional to show my face and talk about it that way. This video is going to be very different to most of the other content I tend to do, because usually there'd be a lot of heavily edited stuff, it'd be showing some examples and things like that. I'm not going to do that for this video. Basically, this video is inspired by the fact that I get a lot of questions about artist add-ons, like where I rank things, what I think of them. So I have compiled two tier lists here of what I believe to be artists' best add-ons from both an objective and a subjective viewpoint. The first one we'll go over is like what I believe to be the definitive sort of tier list of her add-ons. And the other one is from my personal opinion and experience of using the add-ons, what I like to use more than most, if that makes sense. Both are opinion-based, technically speaking. I say technically speaking because I am well informed of artists' add-ons and artists as a character to know what kind of works in what situation. But at the same time, I have a very different opinion on the Festering Carrion to what everyone else has about that add-on, for example. So we're just going to go ahead and go through them one by one, rather, from S tier down to D tier. This list is the one that I believe to be factual. Is kind of what this is the list that is kind of the placement of artists' best and worst add-ons. Still semi-opinion based. But no one's going to argue with me when I say the Severed Hands is by far her best add-on. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is her best add-on. The reason for that is it has the ability to injure and down and swarm multiple survivors at once from one crow. Well, two crows, technically, to do the injuring thing. What this add-on does on paper is once a survivor is swarmed, if they come into contact with a survivor who isn't swarmed, that survivor also gets swarmed. Doesn't sound all that exciting on paper. It sounds like a good add-on, but there are many circumstances in which this becomes very, very scary. For starters, say you've got two survivors, one swarmed, one not swarmed. This survivor is just about to finish removing their swarm from them, but then they bump into this survivor who gets swarmed. So they remove their swarm, this survivor gets swarmed, they're still close together, that survivor who's swarmed swarms that survivor who just got rid of the crows. In the meantime, you've got your power back. You're ready to shoot and absolutely obliterate those health states on both those survivors without any trouble at all. So it's really good for keeping people perpetually swarmed, especially if they're working on the same gen together. Like this add-on paired with Discordance is quite nasty. But it's really fun to use. It's really good for countering body blocking. Because in an endgame scenario, what survivors want to do is obviously they want to take hits for each other. All you have to do is, so long as there's enough distance between the hook and the exit gate, or the survivors you're going for and the exit gate, shoot one survivor. Pretty much all of them will get swarmed, and then you just shoot a volley of three, you shotgun three birds, and that guy gets downed, those two get injured, and the swarm remains on all of them still, so maybe you'll even get your power back and get to do it again or something. It's really, really good. There's also a technique you can use, the slingshot technique, I like to call it. Khan likes to call it staggered hit. I always like to preference that because some people understand that it's called different things. I like slingshot because that's kind of what it is. It's like going like that and then going, you know? So if you're able to, if you know the distance between when a crow can and can't injure a survivor on the same use of her power, with the Severed Hands add-on, if you pull this off, you get two people injured guaranteed with one use of your power from across the map. That's like a huntress being able to throw two hatchets at once. That's honestly kind of nutty. Because if you didn't know, when a survivor gets swarmed, this is another note on Severed Hands, by the way. When a survivor gets swarmed, they are temporarily immune to another incoming crow. I think the timing's a second. I don't entirely know. I should look that up. I should know, but I don't know the numbers off by heart. There's a short amount of time that they are immune to being hit from another crow. It's basically so that you don't place crow and then place crow, shoot, swarm, and then injure. It's to prevent that from happening, but you can still circumvent that. It's just a difficult technique to pull off, and it usually kind of depends on the survivor remaining where they are and thinking that they're safe. So you can swarm a survivor, stagger. This is what a slingshot is, by the way. You can stagger the hit, place one crow here, walk a good distance, place another crow. They get swarmed, that timer wears off, the next crow hits them. Severed hands. When a survivor is swarmed with 7 hands, so when this survivor is swarmed comes into contact with a non-swarmed survivor, they don't have that timer on them. I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know if it's intentional. I hope they don't change that. But yeah, that survivor that is recently swarmed does not have that protection, which is why it works so well to get 2 inches on a gen. It's genuinely one of her nuttiest add-ons. It's really good for invo, really good for keeping people swarmed, meaning that you'll be able to pull off your shots because they won't be able to repel in time before you can shoot them if they've been reswarmed. Genuinely just fantastic add-on. We'll move on now because thankfully the rest of them are very simple to go over. The Thick Tar, a brown add-on in S tier. I know, it's crazy. You'll see a lot of artists probably run this add-on, and it's dead simple. Crows take longer to repel. Your swarm takes longer to repel. Only by 0.5 seconds, but remember that's the window of a dead hard. It really, really makes a difference. And this add-on, in combinations with things like Festering Carrion, Velvet Fabric, I'm wondering if there's another one we could maybe run. I'm thinking there might be, but... Oh, Untitled Agony, even. Maybe. These ones less so. Much more the Festering Carrion tends to be the add-on to combo this with. Basically, what that means is you then have a second extra window with these add-ons combined to hit them with your shot. It's just really good for confirming a shot you otherwise might not have gotten. It's just that little window that enables you to hit the shots you need to, and you can't argue with that. Even I should be running this add-on. I don't like to because it messes with muscle memory a little bit. If I ever decided to run any other add-ons, I might find that I'm not hitting the shots I'm used to hitting just because of that 0.5 seconds. That's a personal preference thing. It's just how I like to play, but it is a solid recommendation for any artist player. You can't go wrong with Thick Tar. You just can't. Do be mindful that 0.5 seconds won't make the most difference in terms of number of birds you can fire sometimes. It's complicated. Her power timings are things that I recommend any artist player gets familiar with, which is why I don't like running these add-ons, because it's important to know at base what you can get away with and what you can do, because then it's good for decision making. It means you don't commit to a shot you know you can't hit, and it also means you don't commit to a chase or whatever that you know you can't follow up on. That's Thick Tar. Matias' Baby Shoes. Solid add-on. It's just a solid add-on. I don't like to use it. I never like using this add-on. I've never gotten use out of it, but that's because I'm a very aggressive artist player. I care about chasing people down, getting bird shots, all that stuff. The information that Matias' Baby Shoes gives me, though invaluable, is useless to me, because I'm active. I'm continually chasing. I'm not mind gaming. Well, I am mind gaming, but I'm not playing around this add-on, if that makes sense. What it does is, I can't remember the meter radius. Within a few meters of an idle dire crow, the survivor's aura is revealed to you. And this effect lingers once the crow disintegrates or is fired or anything like that. It's really good for anti-loop. It's good for zoning anti-loop, and it's good for mind gaming. It's good for predicting what a survivor is doing around certain tiles. It also helps you, like if you've angled the bird at a window, for example, or at a pallet, and the survivor is running past it, it lets you know exactly when to fire that bird to hit them. It's just a generally good add-on for that kind of stuff. It's really good for confirming hits. But usually, as I say, my playstyle is very aggressive, so I'd rather take a risk and get a hit than wait and wait and wait and secure one, if that makes sense. That's just me. Solid add-on, though. Can't go wrong with. Now, this might be a surprise to some. It won't be a surprise to anyone that knows me, because I rant and rave about this add-on. I love it to pieces. Severed Tongue is my go-to. Very good for aggressive artist players. On paper, sounds awful. Basically, whenever you fire a crow, the artist is slowed for, I don't know, about a second, maybe a second and a half. You'll really start to feel it the more you use your power, and it's as you fire it that you're slowed down. This add-on reduces that slowdown by 0.5 seconds. Everything's always 0.5, 1.5. You'll notice it's very small incremental amounts, but they add up to a lot. The reason this add-on is better than it seems on paper is not only does it mean you lose less distance as you fire your shots, keeping you on the attack, like you're oppressing them pretty heavily. It also recovers you from that state for a while. When you fire your crow, you're unable to go into an M1 quickly, right? So long as you're slowed, you're still firing the crow, basically. So that's like a cooldown before you can go into a normal attack. This reduces that by 0.5 seconds. And it's the difference between a down or not. On multiple occasions. You miss your shot at a pallet. Oh, it doesn't matter. I can go straight into an M1. It helps with melee birding. So if I melee birded someone, which is when I basically use it like a hunter's hatchet in close range and just sort of hit someone and then go for an M1, it shortens that so they don't make a window or something they otherwise would. And it really does make a difference. You'll notice Severed Tongue working in these little instances, and you'll notice not having it if you've run it for a while. Because there's many instances I miss my shot, and it's made up for by having this add-on. It's just really good for confirming a down and keeping on the oppressive. It's probably really good paired with this. It's probably really good paired with Carrion. But that's just a personal preference thing. I don't like running Carrion, but we'll get to that in a bit. Honestly, solid add-on for aggressive artist players. I would always recommend giving it a shot. It's a good add-on. Not much to explain with this one. The Thorny Nest, it's Sloppy Butcher for crows. It applies the Hemorrhage and Mangled status effect whenever you injure or down a survivor with your crow. So, like any add-on, like Sloppy Butcher is one of the most oppressive and powerful killer perks at the moment. It really is, because Hemorrhage is... Well, the Hemorrhage on Sloppy Butcher is infinitely worse and much more agonizing to deal with. But applying Hemorrhage Mangled from doing what you plan you should be doing anyway, obviously you can't, if you're running Sloppy Butcher, you don't get to apply Sloppy Butcher onto a survivor if you hit them with your power. This will circumvent that, basically. You won't get the same level of Hemorrhage, but Hemorrhage Mangled is still really good, especially if you're pressuring injures. You just can't go wrong with that. Like, of all of her green add-ons, I think that one is the most versatile and most useful, in my opinion, because Hemorrhage Mangled is just that good. It's slowdown. It's really good slowdown. I probably shouldn't have put this here. I probably should have put it like here or here. But I'd say they're kind of interchangeable. Now, Garden of Rot. It's weird to have an Eerie in a different tier, I know. And forgive me, I'm just going to need a sip of water. It's a lot of talking. Make sure I'm recording, because God, I'd hate to have lost all this. Anyway, Garden of Rot it's a decent Eerie. I barely ever run this. I don't find it all that fun to use. What it does is when a survivor repels a swarm, for 4 seconds they are exposed. So basically what would happen is, the best way to utilize this add-on is to catch the survivor off guard, is to take advantage of their hubris, in a way. They think they're safe if they repel the swarm. They are not. If you're right up behind them, and they're just about to finish the repel action, they repel the swarm, insta-down. Like, boom. You can't complain with that. That's really good. But then survivors start to play around that. They're aware that if you're too close, repelling the swarm is a bad idea, so you won't get the value out of the insta-down. But, weirdly enough, the insta-down is more of a decentive to remove the crows, right? So what this add-on ends up being is the opposite. You use this add-on more to guarantee that they remain swarmed. And you compare this with Severed Hands as well. That's a kind of nasty combo you can run. Survivors that don't know you're running this add-on will always get caught off guard by it. You can capitalize on that. You'll never go wrong with that. Getting an insta-down is really valuable. But often, if you're too close, and a survivor knows you've got this add-on, they don't want to risk getting insta-downed, which is good for you, because then it just means that you get to, A, practice your bird shots, because they won't be repelling, and if they're not repelling, you're going to have perfect aura reading on them, because you'll see the swarm of the crows, and you'll be able to hit them quite easily. You'll be able to predict their movements and hit them with your bird. Basically, it kind of guarantees that you're removing health states unless you miss your shots, which you shouldn't really be doing, but it's just a solid add-on for either both insta-downing or practicing shots, because survivors will not repel. I'm sorry if I end up repeating myself a bit. None of this is scripted. I'm just going over each add-on as we go. Right. The infamous Festering Carrion. Every artist runs this add-on. They just do. They love this add-on to pieces. I get it. I personally don't like it. I don't have an issue with it, really, on paper. I should be running it. I mean, I rant and rave about Severed Tongue. Right, for those that don't know, Festering Carrion gives you a 0.5 seconds, there's that number again, recovery after firing your crows. And that's not like Severed Tongue. That reduces your movement speed. That reduces the movement speed penalty. This reduces the cooldown. So you get your power back quicker. You know, you got your bird here, your bird power. I don't draw good birds. Bird power. It's this recovery bar. It's how fast this recovers. Right? Yeah, it recovers in 0.5 seconds sooner. It means you get to fire your next shot 0.5 seconds quicker. Perfectly serviceable add-on. Perfectly good. Great to combo with Thick Tar, with Severed Tongue. With any add-ons, really. You can't go wrong with recovery, no matter how small it is. My issue is, I don't feel like that 0.5 seconds makes a difference to the chase that I'm engaging in. That's where I kind of draw the line at it a bit. If I'm going to hit my shot, I know I'm going to hit my shot. The 0.5 seconds isn't really going to help me with that, you know? I've gotten accustomed to knowing what is and what isn't a hit, predicting a survivor's movements, all that sort of stuff. I don't feel like 0.5 seconds is really going to help me do that. That's just me. I'm mostly used to running this, and I'll explain this add-on in a bit, obviously. I just don't think it makes that much of a difference to my matches. People always like to go on about you'll have your power more, because it's 0.5 seconds plus 0.5 seconds plus 0.5 seconds. Like, every time you shoot your crows, you're incrementally not waiting around for your power to recover. But not often do I find myself always wanting to use my power. Sometimes I've used my power already, and the survivor is dead already. The survivor's downed. So that 0.5 second recovery doesn't really matter, because I'm picking them up and putting them on the hook. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter in those circumstances, so that time doesn't matter. If I hit my shot, regardless, the 0.5 seconds I don't feel is helping. Much more, sorry. And I think a lot of my bias towards not liking this add-on as much as everyone seems to rant and rave about it is because of how much more use I seem to get out of this one. And we'll move straight on to that one now. This is the automatic drawing. My favourite add-on to pair with Severed Tongue, because it makes me really, really aggressive. It really matches my aggressive playstyle. And this is what I really like about artist add-ons, is any combination of these work towards your individual playstyle, what you prefer. They're very, very nice. They're very nicely balanced, in my opinion. I think a lot of people agree with that too. Automatic drawing is a recovery add-on for 1.5 seconds. It's a 1.5 second recovery add-on for when your crows disintegrate. So when you've placed your crow, and perhaps you've placed another one, excuse me, they remain idle for a set amount of time. You'll notice this with your power bar as it starts to regress. Once it hits that point, your power will start to recover and go the opposite direction. This reduces that recovery after your crows disintegrate by 1.5 seconds, from what is 2 seconds. Your recovery, your power recovery is 2 seconds if you let your crows disintegrate. That makes it a 0.5, funny number again, 0.5 second recovery from letting your crows disintegrate. It's near instant. It's near instant. Like, if you use this add-on, you'll see that once your crows disintegrate, you have your power back. Like, that's how it feels. And I find that so much more useful, at least in high MMR, for example. There's a lot of survivors I face. I place crows down, they move to the next loop. I place a crow down, they move to the next loop. By this point, I don't want to shoot my shot. Probably bad phrasing. I don't want to shoot my crows, because if I do that, I'm going to be suffering a pretty hefty cooldown on my power. So I let them disintegrate, and in doing so, I get my power back instantly. And the amount of times I've had a survivor run to a T&L wall, for example, if you don't know what tile that is, it's these tiles, and there's a window here and a window here. Say we're coming this way, the survivor's coming this way, survivor's here. My power is recovering, it's recovered, I get to melee bird them. That's when I find this add-on to be a lot more useful. It's a much more active add-on. I can feel it doing its work. The amount of times I've been in situations where I've not had automatic drawing, and I would have secured an injure or a down if I was able to quickly melee bird or quickly swarm or fire my birds. I need to stop saying that, sorry. It's unfathomable. I much prefer this add-on to Carrion, but there is an argument to be made that this is more consistent. I shouldn't write, because this is more consistent over time, because you're always going to be using your power, so you'll always want a little bit of recovery on that. This is going to be semi-situational, because not all the time are you going to be letting your crows disintegrate. There's an argument that can be made for both. I think it's genuinely personal preference. I much prefer this to Carrion, but both are great recovery add-ons, and you could run them both if you really wanted to. But I just personally feel you'd be missing out on things like Thick Tar, Severed Hand, Severed Tongue, Thorny Nest. You know, there's some better add-ons you can run in combo. Even this one here, for example, but we'll get to that. Silver Bell. Now, these two add-ons are very similar. This is Silver Bell, I think it's Silver Bell, and Ogre Faux Lover. Both have the exact same effect. Well, actually, this one does as well. We'll group those together. All three of these add-ons have an effect of when a survivor is swarmed, they suffer a status effect. And I've grouped these in order of what I find to be the most useful. Silver Bell is Oblivious. This is Exhaustion, Ogre Faux Lover, and this is Blindness. You can see why Blindness is at the bottom. Blindness is a very shit mechanic. It really doesn't do a lot for you in an active trial, but it might have a niche use in a build, so I'm not going to complain about that. So yeah, the Silver Bell applies Oblivious when a survivor is swarmed. The reason I put that above Exhaustion is because you can play around the Oblivious. It's much more useful to you, because you could swarm a survivor from the other end of the map. Consider pairing this with Severed Hands, for example, where they keep perpetually swarming themselves, and they don't hear you coming. I used to run a build that had Hysteria on it, and it was really, really good when slingshotting, and I used to get some really fast early downs with it, because what would happen is a survivor would be swarmed, they'd be injured, they'd become oblivious from Hysteria, and they wouldn't know where I'm coming from. They wouldn't hear me approaching them, and they wouldn't know from what direction either. So I'd end up catching them off guard, downing them, and putting them on the hook before people could get 20% on a generator. It was pretty good. And the Silver Bell can enable for a similar thing. Maybe not a down as much, but it will make a survivor oblivious on the other end of the map. Remember that your power does that. And that allows you to creep up on them. So there's some interesting cases, niche cases in which you could make use out of this add-on. It's not going to be the best. That's why it's in B tier. How I've described it sounds like fun, but it's very situational and it doesn't work as often as you'd like it to. But it's still pretty good, in my opinion. Now, a lot of people are going to be surprised to hear me say that the Exhaustion add-on is below an Oblivious one, when they both apply through the same means. It doesn't linger. The thing is about this Exhaustion is it's so long as they are swarmed. They repel the swarm, they're no longer exhausted. I remember a circumstance where I ran this add-on, swarmed someone on a generator, they repelled the swarm, and then immediately began to sprint burst. And I'd lost them at that point. It's useful. For example, if a survivor is trying to repel the swarm but has to vault a window, if they're still swarmed, they're not going to be able to use their Lithe. They're not going to be able to use Balanced Landing so long as they're swarmed. So there's very niche cases in which it's quite useful. You don't really want to be running it to counter mage for this. It's not really gonna make that much of a difference. It will so long as they're swarmed, they can't use Made for This. Cool. Nice. But at the same time, Made for This isn't an artist's problem a lot of the time. If you're hitting your shots, Made for This isn't really going to make you miss them. That is the one time the 3% isn't making the difference, given the hitbox of the crow. It would only make the difference if you missed in the first place. Like, if you would only marginally hit them, which, you know, you could make an argument for. It's still a good add-on to run, 100%. It's just a niche circumstance in which you apply the exhaustion. It's not like a Skull Merchant's drone, for example, where they're exhausted so long as they're in the radius, and they're exhausted lingering when they leave it. It's only while they're swarmed, which is why I think it's below Silver Bell, because it's not as useful. You can get more use out of that than you can out of that. And if a Survivor's not running an exhaustion add-on, it's not doing anything for you. A Survivor doesn't have to be running an exhaustion add-on for you to get use out of Silver Bell. Next we have the Iridescent Feather. Weird to put it here, but I've had some I've had some good fun with this. It's kind of good when paired with the Ink Egg. It's kind of a dreaded combo. It's the only add-on you really want to run with Eerie Feather. Or the only time you ever want to run Ink Egg, rather, is with Eerie Feather. What Iridescent Feather does is it only allows you 2 crows. But when you fired both crows, not just one, when you fired both crows and you're on the cooldown, while you're cooling down, you're undetectable. So what this add-on basically means is place 2 crows, fire 2 crows, undetectable. Place 2 crows, fire 2 crows, undetectable. It's a pretty good add-on for that. It's got the similar effect to what Silver Bell does, in that obviously the Survivor doesn't know you're coming, you can sneak up on them. Artist is actually pretty good for stealth in some circumstances. Depends on your cosmetic, because if you're running like an ice cosmetic that glows in the dark and all that nonsense, then the Survivor's going to see you coming from a mile away. Plus you're very tall, so it's hard to get use out of undetectable. But on indoor maps, for example, it's very good. She barely makes a noise. She doesn't make footstep sounds. She only makes a sort of ghost-facey, creaky leather sound, as it sounds like she's floating. But yeah, like she's very, very quiet. So she's very good for stealth builds in that case. But the issue is you have 2 crows, which... you know, you're not able to really make use of a lot of bird shots. You're kind of playing a lot more around your undetectable than you are anything else. You're kind of just screwing yourself over certain guaranteed hits because of that 2 crow deficit. Now, Ink Egg kind of makes up for that. Ink Egg, I'm wondering if we should come back to it. We'll go over Ink Egg in a bit. All you need to know is Ink Egg gives you 1 extra crow. So with the Eerie Feather, you end up with 3 crows then if you combine these. And also, something to bear in mind, the more crows you fire, the longer your cooldown is. Right? So if you fire 3 crows, you're undetectable for like 2-3 seconds longer, which I think is much more useful. You get a lot more use out of this add-on by firing 3 crows than you do firing 2 crows, because you recover your power not fast, but at a decent rate when running Eerie Feather alone. So it's good to pair with Ink Egg, so you have that extra undetectable time. And, you know, all you have to do is fire an extra crow for it. Not too shabby. Next we have the Velvet Fabric. Solid add-on. If anything, solid info add-on. Really good for new players. I've always recommended that new players do Thick Tar and Velvet Fabric together. Because the Thick Tar, as we know, 0.5 seconds to... it takes them extra to repel a swarm. The Velvet Fabric shows you the aura of the swarm on a Survivor for an extra 1.5 seconds. So when a Survivor starts repelling the swarm, the aura starts to fade away after about a second, I think. This will extend that time by 1.5 seconds. So you get to see where the Survivor is moving for longer than you normally would, which is really good for setting up, lining, and predicting a shot. By the time you have to fire a crow, that aura will have gone, so it is up to you and your predictions, but it will help you, learn what a Survivor is doing. If a Survivor is pretty competent, and knows what they're doing, what they will often do is they will repel a swarm in one direction, and the second they believe that the swarm has faded, as in when the aura has faded so you can't see them anymore, they'll stand still. They'll stand still, or they'll start walking in an odd sort of fashion so that you overshoot. This add-on will let you know if they're doing that. Because if they don't predict this add-on, that 1.5 seconds, you'll see them doing this, and you'll be able to potentially line up a shot to predict where they're faking you out. Which it's a really good add-on for doing that. Not always the best niche case scenario, and it does mess with muscle memory. If you get too familiar with running Velvet Fabric every match, anytime you decided to take it off, you'll realize you don't have that information anymore. If you became reliant on this add-on to hit your shots, you're never going to want to take it off. I don't recommend using it for extended use, just to get used to using her power, or for a circumstance where you're a bit tired of failing the prediction. It's just good for getting familiar with those. Now, I feel like maybe I should put this higher, but every time I've used this add-on, I've never had much fun with it. I've never noticed it. I've never seen it really do a lot more for me than I would normally do. What this does, what's it called again? I need to remember. Untitled Agony. That's it, it's Untitled Agony. Yeah, because that's so grief roller, but that's Untitled Agony. This is, I think, very similar to the green add-ons. I thought that was the case. Right, so it's not quite like the green add-ons, but the activation is the same as the green add-ons. So basically, when a survivor is swarmed, they become hindered for 1.5 seconds. I don't know what hindered that is. I think it might be 8%. I'm not sure how much. I think that might be the Wesker one. I'm not entirely sure. But unlike these, where it applies that status effect for as long as they are swarmed, this only does it for the first 1.5 seconds upon being swarmed. You could pair this with Severed Hands for some kind of nasty slowdown stuff, but it doesn't, you know. In my opinion, it's a decent add-on. It's perfectly fine. A lot of people like to pair this with Carrion because they think it makes them very oppressive. I suppose it does. I don't know 100%. I don't use this add-on much. I don't see it doing much for me. If people don't know what that hindered is, it'll slow a survivor down by a certain percentage once they get swarmed. It's good for two reasons. It might help you hit a shot. It might help you close the distance. So if you know you're not going to hit a shot, you're at least slowing them down so that you can hit them before they reach something. Good for that sort of circumstance. It means that swarming a survivor isn't so useless. Consider they run into an idle crow. You could use it like a bit of a trap. You might be able to hit them at a pallet because they've been slowed down for that additional 1.5 seconds. They might not quite make it. So there are niche circumstances in which this add-on can be quite useful. Personally, I just don't find it all that useful. I'm wondering if it's worth going over the other list, because I seem to be sharing my opinions on this one as it is. Anyway. Now, I did some experimentation recently with the oil paints, and I have to admit, it's a solid add-on. It's a genuinely good add-on. It doesn't do much more for you than information. Unlike Velvet Fabric, which can help you line up a shot, the oil paints doesn't provide you any real benefit. All it is information. What the oil paints does is it increases the range, I think, by 1.5 meters. I think. Or is it 2 meters? I can't quite remember. But it increases the killer instinct detection range when you miss a shot. When you fire a crow, if it narrowly missed a survivor, say this is the survivor, and you fire a crow and it narrowly misses them, you'll have killer instinct on this survivor for a short amount of time. This is to let you know that you've missed your shot, but you were close. You weren't off the mark, basically. It lets you know of a survivor's position. It detects survivors in lockers, and I actually just realized this now as I'm saying it. It could be very good for that, because that means that anyone hiding in a locker is more likely to be found. And it also detects people on the floor. So if you're looking for a slug, you can use your power to find them that way. Useful information. I always thought that you shouldn't be missing your shot in the first place. Increasing killer instinct isn't much use to you. And to an extent, I'm correct. But there are some circumstances where a survivor is just simply outplaying and you can't help it. Or you're wondering how it was possible that you missed that shot. Or you're wondering where they're running to next. Are they faking you out? Are they, if you narrowly miss them at a tile, the killer instinct can help you mind game them, for example. There's a lot of circumstances where increasing that radius makes a difference. You're either going to hit your shot or you're going to get information from it. It's very useful in those circumstances. But as I say, it is simply information. It doesn't guarantee you anything. After all, you've missed your shot, your power is now on cooldown. You're not going to be able to guarantee a hit on them because the killer instinct will fade before you get your power back. So it's not useful for that. It's just quite a nice quality of life add-on, in my opinion. Next, we have the Ink Egg. There might be some niche circumstances you'll want to run this add-on. Don't run it, in my opinion. Don't run it at base. Always pair it with Iridescent Feather or something. Have a build idea in mind if you wanted to run this add-on. I'm not sure what build idea you might want. You could pair this with the Still Life Crow to reduce its setback, or eliminate its setback even, and have an extra crow. But it's just not an add-on you'll find a lot of use out of. What Ink Egg does is, the artist at base starts with 3 crows. The Ink Egg will give you 1 extra crow. So you could have 4, or in the case of like Iridescent Feather, as I said, you end up going from 2 to 3. But it comes with the deficit of your birds disintegrate 4 seconds faster. Meaning you can't use them for anti-loop. You can't slingshot effectively without placing 3 crows. There's a lot of circumstances in which this add-on will do you more harm than good. You never need 4 crows. You never need 4 crows. I've never seen a circumstance where I'm chasing a survivor, they're swarmed, they haven't repelled, and I'm like, if only I had a 4th crow, I would have hit them. It never happens. And even if it did happen, in any rare circumstance, say they weren't repelling, or they were repelling, they vaulted a window, I missed my shot, or I've placed 3 crows down, none of them would hit them, they vaulted a window, but they're still swarmed, and now I can place a 4th crow and hit them. That 4-second deficit, where your power disintegrates faster, will make it so I don't even get to place the 4th crow. Because you've also got to consider that the artist needs a second to charge her power. It's like, and then she gets to place a crow. That recovery time, you got to imagine that running this add-on, you need to start using your power at this point. Because if you use it any later, your power your birds will disintegrate before you even get to place your next bird. It's just never going to happen. It's never useful. 4 birds is too much. Because you shoot 1 bird to swarm a survivor, you only have enough time to place 3 and fire them. If you place 4, they'll repel the swarm without something like this. And even then, it's only 0.5 seconds from thick tar. So it's just not a good add-on. It's really not a good add-on. The only thing, and also consider your anti-loop is now weaker, because your birds disintegrate faster. Plus, people might think, but if they disintegrate faster, you get your power back faster. It's like, well, no, maybe. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm tempted to pair this and this. I'm curious how aggressive an Ink Egg and automatic drawing build will be. I've never considered doing that. But basically, your power will go on cooldown faster, but the recovery is still the same. You won't get your power back any quicker. It just disintegrates faster. It's very strange. I don't know. Maybe I should pair this with this. Basically, the idea being you recover your power near instantly, your power disintegrates really quickly. It means if you mess up your anti-loop, you can put it down again. Or if you mess up your shot, you can put it down again. Maybe it's a good combo. I might give it a shot. I might end up revising Ink Egg's placement if that's the case. But Ink Egg on its own is a bad add-on. Do not run this without something else to help it. Anyway, or that. We'll get to that in a bit. Not much to say about this. This is the Blotted Ink, or Inkwell, or something. I don't remember what it's called. I never use it. It's a shit add-on. Doesn't really do anything. All it does is apply blindness when a survivor is swarmed. If a survivor is swarmed, you're likely chasing them. What good is blindness? Might help against windows of opportunity. That's about it, really. If a survivor's swarmed, they're not really going to be going for a hook, and if they're going for a hook, they already know where it is. The blindness status effect, unless it ever gets buffed, will not always be all that useful. It's not a good add-on. I tried running it with Plaything, because Plaything shows you the aura of your totem that you need to cleanse so that you're no longer oblivious. This add-on will hide that, but only while they're swarmed. It's no use. If you want to apply blindness, run Hex the Third Seal. If you're that desperate to make a survivor blind for some reason, there's just better perks that do it for you. Don't run the add-on. It's just... It's fine, but how often are you going to find it all that useful? I can't remember what this add-on's called, because I never run it. Even though I have like 3,000 of them. I think it's Annotated Newspaper or something like that. Annotated Notes, Artist Add-ons. Oh, Vibrant Obituary. That's the name of it, my bad. It increases the Killer Instinct duration by 3 seconds. Okay. I mean, these are both Killer Instinct add-ons. Both the Oil Paints and the Obituary. I just think Oil Paints has a lot more use by extending the range in which a survivor can be detected than increasing the Killer Instinct detection time. Because who needs that? What use is Killer Instinct detection time in Artist's case? It's not useless, but it's not worth much. I can't really say much more about this add-on. I don't see a circumstance in which you apply Killer Instinct to someone and you find yourself going, if only Killer Instinct lasted longer, I'd have been able to do something. Not in Artist's case. In Legions, definitely, because Legion's got a power based around it. But Artist doesn't benefit from it. Your shot, you should just hit your shot in the first place. Like, meh add-on. Very meh. Not worthless, but meh. Right. Now, we're going to go over both the Still Life Crow and the Chocolo Corn together. Because they both do the same thing, but for different lengths of time. These add-ons, the last 3 add-ons, are bad add-ons. I said in my artist guide video, do not run these add-ons. All 3 of these add-ons are poo-poo garbage. They just are. They are her worst add-ons. They have no niche use. There is an argument to be made for maybe Chocolo Corn, maybe Still Life Crow. Depends on your playstyle and what you're going for. But Artist at her prime doesn't ever want to use these. What these add-ons do is this one for 4 seconds, this one for 2 seconds. They keep your power idle for longer. They mean your crows don't disintegrate for an additional 4 seconds or an additional 2 seconds. It basically means that you can keep a survivor in a loop for longer. Basically. It means that they don't disintegrate as quickly. They're not useful. The only circumstance you'll find yourself wanting to run an add-on like this is if you're really locking down loops and you really care about anti-loop. Or you want to run Still Life Crow with Ink Egg, because remember that there's a 4-second deficit. That one will make your crows disintegrate 4 seconds faster. The Still Life Crow completely mitigates that downside. But then it's just, all your add-ons are doing are giving you a 4th crow. And as I've said, you never need 4 crows. You never need 4 crows. It could be fun, but you never need them. Yeah. Still, it's only for locking down. It's only for anti-loop. You might find a build or circumstance in which you want to do that, in which case you'd want to run these add-ons for it. But I can't think of anything that you'd ever want to do that for, and I made a good point in my artist guide video, is if you haven't hit a survivor with your idle crow before it disintegrates, then you never would have. Like, having these add-ons doesn't make up for that. Because more often than not, what a survivor will do is leave the loop. And then all you're doing is making your power recovery 4 seconds or 2 seconds longer. If you're running both of them, that's 6 seconds you are without a power, and they're just sat there at shack while you're chasing them at a TNL. It's so much more of a detriment to you than it is a help. And also consider that, yeah, your power sits there for 4 to 2 or maybe even 6 seconds longer, but your power doesn't recover any faster. When they do disintegrate, you're still going to suffer the normal cooldown. So really, the only thing you'd want to do is maybe run it with something like that to make up for that a little bit, but even then, you're suffering a 3.5? No, 2.5? Just don't run them. Just don't run them. They will never do anything for you. They're useless add-ons. And this one is pure poo-poo garbo. You are literally going to put yourself into a position where you don't have a power. Charcoal Stick has a lot of niche potential. I like what Charcoal Stick is trying to do, but it's genuinely useless. It makes survivors know how to dodge your power. What this add-on does is it completely hides the aura of your crow shots. When you fire your crows, survivors can see them coming. They can see which direction you're firing them. The only difference is, like, they fly so fast, sometimes they don't have time to react. It doesn't really matter, right? This add-on removes that white aura. So now a survivor can no longer see the crows coming at them through a wall. Now, on paper, that sounds good. However, the deficit is for, I think, 0.5 seconds. Oh, God. For 0.5 seconds, the survivors can see the aura of the crow that you're placing. So instead of showing the aura of the crow that you're firing, it shows the aura of the idle dire crows that you're placing. This is bad for two reasons. One, it makes anti-loop useless, because a survivor can now see exactly where and how you've angled a crow. If you angle a crow at shack pallet window, they know 100% what direction it's facing and how to avoid it. And the same is true from across the map. If you want to snipe a survivor on the gen, a savvy survivor that's looking in the direction of where the artist's last known position was, they can see the crow facing their direction. They know to let go and dodge the crow. Even bad players know how to do that. This add-on will always work against you. It will always be a detriment to you. You never use these three add-ons. They will never do anything helpful to you. When you've got a plethora of add-ons here that are all useful in some niche ways, and Thick Tar, an S tier add-on at a brown, why would you ever want to run these other add-ons? Like, I don't think that can be argued. Just do not run those add-ons. I'm going to use this other tier list as basically a summary of everything that I've said so far. Considering I've actually gone over everything in the objective tier list, of where I think everything stands, like, verbatim, I'm going to kind of summarize everything that I said here. For example, these three add-ons, never run them. Never run. They're poo-poo garbo. They'll do nothing for you. The Ink Egg is good when paired with the Eerie Feather and things like that. Maybe it could have some niche use with automatic drawing, but, I mean, don't run it for the 4 crow thing. It's not very good. This, you can do so much better. Just run Thick Tar. If you want to run a brown add-on, run Thick Tar. You can't go wrong with oil paints. The oil paints at least provide some nice information to you and extends that radius. You might find someone in a locker that's hiding there that wants to head on you that you didn't know about, or maybe you can fake them out. Who knows? Not useless. Not useless, but applies blindness. Not all that great. Requires a build to really use effectively, because the undetectable that you get from firing crows, it makes very little difference. If you're in an open map, people are going to see you coming anyway. What's the undetectable really going to do for you? Velvet Fabric, great for beginners. Just a nice little info perk, but doesn't really guarantee anything for you. Like, it's not actively doing anything. It's not denying them anything or providing you with anything other than just that little bit of extra information window. These two, fantastic status effect add-ons. This one, solid. Honestly, Untitled Agony is good. It's just a good add-on. As we said, applies hindered, slows survivors down, helps you close that gap, pretty useful. Could be very good when paired with Severed Tongue. Garden of Rot, don't run it for the insta-down, because you will find you will most likely not get it, because some survivors don't repel swarms anyway for some reason. Run it if you want to try and get better at actually hitting crows. Because it will guarantee that they don't repel the swarm. If you wanted to get a feel for a power, decent Iri add-on to run for that. Carrion, everyone loves Carrion. You cannot go wrong with Carrion. I will always say you can't go wrong with that add-on. I just don't like how everyone blows off Carrion like it's this absolute god-tier artist add-on. I don't believe that. I think it's fine, I think it's good, I think it provides enough, but it's not Elk Ring. Like, it's not Mother-Daughter Ring. It's not anything like that. It's funny that the rings are the ones that are most powerful in DVD, but here we are. I don't find it being that much more useful than other add-ons, personally, over this, because I just love the automatic drawing, makes me much more aggressive. I have seen the automatic drawing guarantee me hits. I haven't seen Carrion guarantee me hits. That's my difference. Sloppy Butcher from Hitting Crows. Matias' Baby Shoes, fantastic. Aura Reading, helps for anti-loop. Great for new players that want to learn the timings of when to hit people through a window. Severed Tongue, my baby, my beloved. I will always love you for how aggressive you make me as an artist player. And Severed Hands, just hands down, her greatest add-on. Like... And I'm not going to explain anymore, because we spent a whole section at the start of this video explaining Severed Hands. So that is artist add-ons. For those that wanted to know an artist player's opinion and, well, I'd say professional opinion on where they think they stand, how useful they are, how good they are, and what they all do. Thank you all so much for watching. If you've made it this far, that is. I know this is a very long video. I've been recording for 50 minutes. I genuinely didn't expect that I'd spend an entire hour talking about artist add-ons, but I had a lot of fun doing so. So if you wanted to see more videos like this, in this style, I'm more than happy to make them, because they're really nice and they're really easy to make, and I have fun just having these kinds of discussions. I could do them on stream as well if we wanted to. But I thought I didn't want the chat interference, because I'd be tempted to read it and I'd be responding. So I thought it'd be better if I just went through all the add-ons and did them this way, and it makes for a nice video. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. I do stream live on Twitch if you wanted to come and see me play the artist. That's twitch.tv/Zaleno. I hope to see you there. Have a good one. Ciao, ciao.